Today I want to talk about postpartum, really perinatal, pregnancy, trying to get pregnant, postpartum, and the emotions and boundaries and mental health that comes around that. I think it's a topic that's starting to get more attention and it's really important. I'm Kelsey Boss. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, one of the owners of Compleo, and mom of two, one with a newborn. So this is all really fresh in my mind. And I'm here with Lindsay, our other owner of Compleo, who wears many hats. She's a play therapist, counselor, so understands the feelings component, but also perinatal trained, correct?
Yes. I think that as I became a parent myself, I began to really empathize with the struggles that the parents across from me were going through. For me personally, I was not that picture perfect, glowing, radiating, pregnant woman. Like, I'm going to be real honest. I love my children and I hated most moments of being pregnant. And it was not easy, right? It was ugly and at times, and I really had to do my own work around managing all sorts of feelings and anxieties that come up when you're pregnant.
Yeah, and I think we're just supposed to be so grateful and we are so grateful.
Yes.
That we were able to get to that point that you feel like you can't have any negative feelings in that pregnancy and early newborn stage, because I would find myself, I struggled with a lot of sickness in pregnancy and I'd be like, but I'm just it's like I invalidated those feelings a lot.
You can be you can be grateful and you can go, I never want to feel that nausea that is unrelenting ever again in my life. You can hold two truths at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of pregnant women need to hear that. Is it okay to have those multiple truths at once and hold space for all of them. So let's kind of just, when we're talking about perinatal mental health, I think it's a really important topic. And I think one thing that is going to apply to every single mom is boundaries, especially in that fresh newborn period. We don't all want in-laws there. Some of us do, some of us don't. So how do you decide, which boundaries you want? Because I think you see, it's okay to hold boundaries of no visitors and all of those things. So I'm a highly social person. Like, I think if no one visited me the first 2 months, I would have been more upset than getting to engage or pop into work or some of the things that I did. So how do you decide which boundaries are good for you? And then how do you enforce those boundaries with your family and support system?
Yeah. When I hear boundaries, I even back up to the moment you find out you're pregnant. Is who do you tell? Is it okay for them to tell other people? Is it not? Can they post on social media? Can they not? Can they post pictures of the baby once you've had the baby or not? Or is it okay for the sweet grandmother at church to come up and rub all over your belly? Some women love that attention. And
Don't touch me.
Yes. Yes. Some people are like, get off my body. And that's okay. Really, I think you asked, how do you know what your boundaries are? I think that spending some time with that is, what do you want this to look like? Recognizing that it's okay to change your mind. You hear me say that regularly. For instance, I thought that I would love people coming over after my firstborn. I did not. I wanted them out of my space. My second was a different process. It was a different pregnancy, different birth, and I was open. Come on over, come into the space, spend as much time. I would love to have other adults around me. So being able to just know that however you are in that moment, it's okay for you to show up, without your hair washed for weeks, or that it's okay for you to show up and go, I want to be put together, and I'm excited to spend time with people. Just really knowing that no matter what comes up for you, it's okay.
It can change.
It can change.
So if you're working through that, it was a lot easier for me the second time around, because the first time around, I didn't even know what the scenarios are going to be. So you you hear all the time, well, decide what you're going to be okay with, and you don't even know what's going to come up. The second time around, it was a very different experience, but I had an idea of the types of things that would come up, out of town in-laws. I want you to visit. I don't want you to stay at my house. Like, yes. I knew what would come up, but in that moment when you're trying to figure that out. And so if you let someone come visit, let a family member come over, and then you start to realize you get that feeling of like, oh, I really am not okay with this. What are some words or self-advocacy strategies you can use without making them feel bad? Because usually it's very well-intentioned, excited people to say like, I thought I was okay with this, but I'm not.
Yeah, exactly that. Because I thought I was okay with this, but I'm not. And allowing yourself the space to be able to get curious about what's underneath that feeling of, ooh, something's off. Do I feel like potentially that, like I'm worried because you've got a little sniffle, mm-hmm. and I feel worried that you might give my baby a cold? Is it that I asked you to wash your hands and you said, oh, I just washed them a few minutes ago? And you're like, but I've asked you to wash your hands, and you've already broken that little boundary. When I think about boundaries, and I think about how do we hold those, other things that are important are, do you like privacy when you feed? Or do you want to tell your in-laws that they can go hide under a blanket themselves, or they can go to the toilet and the restroom while you feed if you're uncomfortable? But either way it's okay, and it's okay to express those things when you come up against a boundary that feels like they're like, why would you think this? Or why have you changed your mind? And being able to hold true to what you know and feel like is best for your child, that is so, so important. What is it that I'm uncomfortable with? Is it that I'm exhausted and I can't have a conversation? Or that you have said, well, when I was a new mom, I did it like this. Have you tried this? And you're like, I don't think it's for the unsolicited advice, but I don't really want your input right now. We've chosen to do things a little bit different. What is it that has caused that breach of your boundary that you might have not even known that boundary mm-hmm. existed, but your nervous system is saying, something's wrong. And that's maybe the first place I think I'd explore. Some common areas that I think people look at are, who do you want in the delivery room or in the waiting room of the hospital? Do you want visitors to come in right after? Do you want to wait a couple days? Do you want your son to be the second person to meet your baby, or the third, mm-hmm. after your partner? What is it that I want this to look like? And you might not know, and that's okay. The next part is, when do you want people to come into your space? What would help look like? For me, I know that I often feel like I have to host everyone, and I want everybody to be comfortable. And you're great at it. I love
to throw a great party.
I do. I love a good party. But man, after my first birth, which was, a wee bit traumatic and in some ways unexpected for sure, I did not want to hold a conversation with someone. I couldn't. I didn't have the brain power to be able to do that. And figuring out what you need along the way is important, and allowing your spouse to help you hold those boundaries. So, being like, hey, honey, I'm all done. And him being able to say, hey, you know what? We need a rest. It was great to see you guys. Let him do the herding out, or her, whatever feels right for you and your family, but making sure that you are aligned with the team of support around you. Let's say maybe you don't have support, a supportive mm-hmm. spouse, or maybe they're out of town in your first couple of weeks.
Yes, that's, we had some surprise work trips in those first couple of weeks, and that was definitely an interesting thing to navigate.
I can only imagine. Asking ourselves, who can we enlist here? Is there a postpartum doula that we could ask for, is there a parent or a friend who has been in the trenches before, who is willing to come over and hold your baby? If you have a baby who has reflux, I am always open to come over and hold for a period of time so you can get sleep or take a shower. Those are things that I think that we don't often realize, is that there's other parents who are out there, even if we don't have a good connection or a close friendship with, who are more than happy to help kind of step in there as well as support people.
So if you, so those were some really good ideas to like think through with your spouse or partner and kind of talk through to be prepared. I hear like the words like postpartum plan thrown out a lot. So what should, if you're expecting, like what should you include in your postpartum plan, there's always going to be unexpected, but to feel a little bit ready from an emotional standpoint?
I think that even before you build a postpartum plan, it's important to recognize that it's gonna bring up a lot of different emotions in you, regardless of if it, is just postpartum blues, or if it feels like it's this, you have a raging ball of anger inside you, or deep anxiety, or it feels like you can't stop crying. All of those things other people have gone through. Perinatal mental health, or anxiety or mood disorder, it impacts about 20 to 30% reported women.
So probably higher.
Yeah, probably higher. And for dads, it can also impact your partner. About 10% are reported. That's higher if your spouse has had birth trauma or something along those lines. I've recognized I'm diverting your question, but I'm getting to the why. The why is important. It's common, and knowing what is helpful is ahead of time can help prepare you and your spouse to be successful moving forward. So going, okay, I know, or you don't know, that feeding is going to be an around-the-clock event.
If you don't know when you're watching this, feeding is going to be an around-the-clock event.
It's going to disrupt your REM cycle, and you are going to have disrupted sleep. And we know that disrupted sleep impacts mood. So how can we help support that? You're also going to need high levels of, of hydration, and your caloric intake is going to be up way high too, but yet you're going to have a baby who might be near you as you're feeding and you're unable to feed yourself. So let's think about things of how are you going to take care of you as mom, your needs, your physical needs of sleep, of food, of physical healing. I think that it is one of the things that as Western society we don't give enough weight to, is what our bodies have to go through in order to create life. It's a wild thing that we get a one-time follow-up at 6 weeks. And we go, oh, yep, everything's good.
I always think of like an ACL repair for one ligament in the knee, like what that protocol looks like. And then we go through all these changes in our body, even if it's natural, even if it's supposed to happen this way, we get almost no guidance in one visit at 6 weeks, and no visits for mental health. I mean, that's one visit to clear you.
Maybe a questionnaire to ask, if you've been crying a lot, and most of us probably have, it's a hard process. So yes, we need supports. Some really basic ones include how are we going to feed ourselves? What that might mean is that when I sit down to feed baby, if you are so lucky to have a partner or a spouse or a support person near you who goes, when you sit down, I'm going to ensure that you have a big old glass of ice water next to you and a plate of snacks or lunch, no matter what time of day it is. even if you might have eaten just an hour ago, that somebody else comes alongside you. I know that some people will do meal trains and organize meal trains, and how
Best baby gift we got was the meal train.
yes, it's so lovely not to even have to think about what to do, because your body doesn't have the energy to stand in front of a stove and cook all day, much less the dishes. Man, meal train, lovely. Is it something that you proactively do, that you go, okay, I know that next to my rocker or my glider, I have a 2-gallon jug of water that I keep there so that in the event I run out, I can one-handed do the spout myself? Is it that I keep a giant basket of snacks that I can open with my teeth that are high in protein right next to me at all times? There's some little things you can do, but there's also some big things that we can do to help with food. Sleep.
The elusive sleep with a newborn.
Yes.
I'm interested if you have chosen to breastfeed and it's been possible for you. Like, what are your recommendations for getting sleep? Because it's not really an option to wake up and feed the baby if that's what you've chosen.
Yes. We had different journeys with each of our kiddos. We were able to breastfeed, and I really valued our experience, but it wasn't that rush of oxytocin that people talk about in these like glorious moments. It was something that we had to work with lactation consultants and specialists on to build strategies that were helpful, and it was wildly different between my two kiddos. For us, one of the things that was really important, and we learned with our firstborn, is that, when baby woke up in the middle of the night, I even struggled to pick baby up with my core strength. And so it was my husband's responsibility to do the immediate diaper change and get him out of bed, while I went and I took care of myself. And I went to the bathroom, I came back, I centered, and then he was able to kind of hand baby off, and then he put baby back in bassinet until we got to a point where we felt more comfortable co-sleeping. And that's something that is probably controversial. And you as a listener might even be going, oh, that goes against everything I know. And as a professional sitting here, I say we have to get rid of that what we should be doing, or what, we figure out strategies that work for us, and the mom guilt that is so real and prevalent in our roles is we got to begin to let go of that and go, we've got to figure out strategies that work for us right here in this moment. And so for us, that was how I ended up getting the most sleep. He pretty much fed around the clock, little cluster feedings, and our next one was a more traditional, get a couple of hours of sleep in between feeds, and it was a smooth transition back and forth. First one, you needed to sleep sitting upright with him, and the second one you could lay down and it was okay. And it's really, really all about figuring out what works for you and your baby and your spouse to maximize sleep. I know for some people, they'll pump and they'll get an extended period of rest in at night. After, they'll pump after they feed in order to get a little extra sleep here and there. For others, they do it differently.
Yeah, I think sleep is the hardest one, I think. I think food and water and those types of making sure you go on a walk, those are all very much in your control. And sleep, I think, is the hardest one to figure out. And I've definitely realized what a different sleep can have on mood. Because our first would not sleep. And I was so much more anxious. Emotionally, it was a much harder, for a lot of different reasons, throw a pandemic in, some other things in there, but it was a much harder experience. And this second time around, we have done, I say it's just pure luck. He has been, for the most part, until he got sick this week, a good sleeper. And I've been so much happier postpartum. And it's because I'm getting sleep. He goes down, he feeds. I hand them off to my husband to do diaper change and things. I go right back to sleep, and I do get some good stretches of sleep and the difference it can make. And so encouraging people to find something that works, whether it's pumping so someone can take a feeding shift or, like you said, letting go of some of those shoulds. Like looking back, I really wish with my first one, I had let go of some of those shoulds and just either pumped or done formula or done something to where I could get a long stretch of sleep and my husband could have gone to the other room and then we could have switched and just each gotten a half night of sleep. And I just wouldn't let go of any of the shoulds. I wouldn't let go of breastfeeding. I wouldn't let go of not co-sleeping. That one's still kind of a non-negotiable for me. So finding where your personal limits are and knowing that they can be different. We're sitting here with different non-negotiables and they're both totally okay. Yeah. And so that is something that basic need of sleep. I think people just accept too quickly. Like it's a newborn, I'm not going to sleep. And there are solutions out there. You just have to let go of the shoulds.
Yes. We have a saying in our house that anything that's said in the middle of the night that we don't hold it against each other in the morning is that we really have to.
That's a good rule.
When you have been woken, you haven't gotten a good REM sleep, you're both on edge already, and it's not always our finest hour. And so really leaning into we're both in that together was important. Another thing that you had mentioned was letting go of those shoulds, as a society, whereas in many countries, the only role that a mom has after birth is to feed her baby and to sleep and to focus on physical healing. And that is it. All of those other responsibilities are outsourced, whether that is a doula or a partner or family, that there is a community and a village that comes alongside a new parent and helps fill in all of the gaps.
And here we're back to work at 6 weeks.
Yes.
I told someone the other day, and I would love your advice from how to protect your mental health with that transition. Because I think the reality is a lot of people watching this are going back to work quickly.
Yes.
For, multiple reasons. They're really passionate about their career or, just financially, it's not an option to take more time off. We have to pay the bills. So whatever your motivation or reason is for not taking that time, I actually think the hardest period emotionally is that period when you're transitioning back to work. Because even though that newborn stage is so hard, when you're not at work, you didn't sleep at night. Okay, you take a great contact nap during the day. I mean, I was so well rested even the nights he didn't sleep because then he slept during the day and we just slept together on the couch and contact napped. So, how can you protect your mental health once you emerge from that newborn, that we can control every aspect of that environment. You can control who's coming into your house. You can control the food. It's a hard bubble, but it's also this just sweet, wonderful bubble that you've created. And then you have to go back to work and leave that bubble. How do you protect your mental health with that transition?
That's a great question.
I'm sure if we had an easy answer, we'd be millionaires. But
I think that it's about giving yourself a little bit of grace and compassion. In this case, even recognizing that this shouldn't be the case, that there's other societies in which it's not, but yet this is our reality, and so we're going to do the very best we can with what we got, and it's going to look like a hot mess. And that's all right. When you were talking about returning back to work, and it's learning how to juggle washing all your pump parts and even those moments of, I don't want to send my child to daycare or to childcare, but yet I have to go back to work. Or perhaps I need out of this house because I am not meant to be a stay-at-home. Either is okay, but we're going to have mixed feelings about that. We might have worry and anxiety and going, all we can do is our best, and we can react and respond moment by moment. And being gentle with our nervous systems, I think, is really important here. Now, what else can we do to let go of some things that we might have felt really strongly about? So perhaps we go, I really care a lot about protecting the environment. But right now, paper plates and paper towels is the only way we're going to get to survive this. And it's going to be for a period of time. Or it's going to be, maybe we don't always have the laundry folded. We operated out of this color basket meant it was clean, and this color basket meant it was dirty for quite a while with our first
I like that strategy. I've been killing myself to get the kids' clothes put up. I like this is the clean basket, this is the dirty basket. That is
It was helpful for us. And I like them organized and put away, and I want my kids to feel well taken care of. But man, they had clean clothes, and that was a success. There's other things too that I think about with our mental health, and when we're maxed, when we're on edge, when we've got this heightened state inside of us, it can impact our ability to lean into relationships. And an example that I use is right when I went back to work. We're in the middle of trying to cook dinner and wash bottle parts, and it's bedtime, or it's bath time, and the dogs need to be let out, and there's just a mountain of like Amazon boxes that need to be broken down, and it was like wild. And so I'm sitting there in the kitchen, and I watch my husband sit on the couch. And, I had some feelings in that moment of, oh, wow, you think that now is the time to sit on the couch.
when we have all these other things to do.
Right? I'm at my end, and I don't have enough hands. And the story, so I ask him for some help. I say, would you like to do bottles or bath time? And he said, I can feel it in my body, right? Is that the story my nervous system was telling me in that moment was I had just asked for too much, that I was alone, I had to do it all on my own. Maybe that he was even a little mad or frustrated that I asked for help. And I had a lot of feelings. Now, knowing what I know now, because we've been in this journey for a while together, is that the story his nervous system was telling him was like, of course. Oh, I'm tired. This is a lot, but yeah, of course you shouldn't have to do it by yourself. Let me gear back up. I got this. Here I come.
So it was a gear up side, but you saw it as I can't believe you just asked for help side.
Right. So it was a very different story that we were telling ourselves. And had we not been intentional about coming back together, and it continues to take intentional time to reconnect when there are different stories that our nervous system are telling us. I don't know how else we would have survived. We have to be in this process together, or at least have a team of other parents around us that we can lean on when we are maxed and when we're at our end.
Yeah, I think the team is really important, and that looks different for everyone. I mean, some people that's supportive spouse, can be parents, best friends. I know at our new mom social hour, there was a period of time where there was a couple moms and their husbands all traveled. So they knew on Friday mornings that they had a safe space to come and just talk about the difficulties the unique challenges that brought is having a spouse that travels. And so finding a village, and it can look different for everyone. What would be your recommendation? So I think the recurring theme, and you hear it everywhere, is postpartum is hard. And you know that. And so you kind of just gear up for that and you use all these things, communication. What are some signs though that I think sometimes people hesitate to reach out for more formalized support from a perinatal counselor because I know this is hard. Like we just got to get through this period, and I know it's going to be challenging, but what are some signs that someone should seek additional support, that they might be feeling more than just this is challenging, that they might be entering that postpartum anxiety, depression, where they need the additional support?
Yeah. That's a great question. As I think that, yes, it may be hard, but it shouldn't feel like you're up against a wall, or that you're hopeless, or that it feels impossible to do anything else. we want to feel joy and we want to feel moments of lightness. We want to be able to look at our baby who's making their first smiles and feel a sense of awe and connection, even if we still don't feel like our full former self. That when there's any sort of disconnection, or it feels like we're watching ourselves from the outside, or we feel this rage that feels like it's boiling over, or our emotions we feel like we can't regulate with the self-care strategies that we know are helpful, even if that means we have to adjust them a little bit. For instance, I love to garden, but I recognize that it was difficult for me to be outside, like, turning my flower beds, but could I plant some pots next to the window outside of our nursery, so that I could see some plants? If I couldn't, that probably meant that I needed some additional support in some way, or at least someone to help guide me to come up with some strategies that could help me get some good sleep, that could help my body feel taken care of, and be able to manage and cope in a way that felt healthy and balanced as possible.
So if someone is watching this and they are feeling some of that, like hopelessness or disconnected or rage or kind of some of those things you just touched on, what are some resources out there? Because I know a lot of times if you call, especially in smaller towns, a counseling center, they go, great, we can get you in 3 months. And you're going, okay, that's not helpful right now. So are there other resources out there, other than counselors, if they end up on a wait list or having a hard time finding a counselor?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the places I got my own training from in perinatal mental health was, it's called Postpartum Support International. PSI is the organization. And it has been such a valuable tool and resource. They have free support groups almost daily. I think it is daily, actually, for specialized things. So it could be, for your partner's mental health. It could be for yours. It could be for moms who have toddlers and baby. Like, it can be so specific. They also have groups for loss and grief, or for kiddos who've been in the NICU. They have all of these wonderful, free of cost support groups that you can go online and figure out what works for your schedule. They also have case managers that are on call that can help link you with local resources in person, or with telehealth resources for perhaps you feel like you can't get away, or there's not someone in your area who's trained, that they can help guide and connect you with services that are affordable or that take your insurance. That is my number one go-to resource. There's another resource. It's the Birth Trauma Mama, and we can give you a link to her Instagram. But for anyone who has experienced a birth that didn't go according to plan, or there was any sort of stressor, or something that was really difficult, maybe it was a injury to you, or something came up that was unexpected, being able to be in a community of other people who recognize that you're going to have some complicated feelings around the birth and your birth story, and that it's not all rainbows and butterflies, is really an important thing. So I often refer moms to that resource.
Yes, that's a really good one. And I think that is really important, is finding other people who've been through similar lived experiences. And for every birth is different, but our first one, we had birth trauma followed by a NICU stay. And it's just, unless you're talking to someone who's lived that, no matter how much our family and friends were there for us, because they were, there's just something about being in community with people who understand what that experience, and kind of that something almost got stolen from you. I mean, I think it took me a long time to say that, because I just lived in this world of, but he's okay now, so it doesn't matter. Everything worked out. And not everyone gets to say that. And so I shouldn't mourn that experience at all. And so there's a lot of feelings that come with things going very differently than planned.
Yeah.
So
It brings me back to the second we should ourselves, we dysregulate our nervous system, right? Is that there isn't a right way to feel or respond in any given moment, and it's going to be full of complicated feelings and emotions, and allowing yourself to hold both the gratitude and the grief that can come when things don't go according to plan is important. Another resource is going back to your OB. Most OBs should be able to screen for any sort of perinatal mood disorder, and that they should be able to come alongside you with resources. Medication can be really helpful. I know for a lot of moms, they are worried about the safety or the side effects, and there is some tremendous research around medications that can help stabilize your mood without passing through your milk, without passing it through to a baby here, and being able to know what could be helpful or not. One of the things I didn't mention earlier, but if there is any symptom where it feels like you feel like you are having any sort of delusions or hallucinations, there's something called postpartum psychosis, and it impacts like 1 or 2 out of every 1,000 moms, and this is a really significant,
very scary
presentation. You go like, who are you? Like, I don't recognize myself, or maybe it can feel so contrary and out of control, and it can be easy for everybody else to go like, oh, maybe when they just get some sleep. But this is a really important thing to know that needs immediate help and intervention, and it can be supported with medication and with the right support, that there is help out there, if that comes up.
Yeah. Great. So kind of what I'm hearing for people watching out there is spend some time exploring boundaries, just sitting with it, what's important to you. Have a plan, a loose plan, but be okay changing it, being willing to let go of shoulds, having a team, and then being some resources for support if things tend to escalate. Is there anything else you would want to leave out there for new parents as they explore this exciting but also overwhelming start to their journey?
Godspeed. You've got this. We're all in it together.
All right. Great. Thank you.